we go. It's a reboot of the Spider-Man franchise, which seems strange considering that Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, it wasn't that long ago. It was around about a decade ago. And then the third one was as recently as 2007. So it's the turnaround is very, very fast. Now, this may be a function of age. If in the 1970s, songs from the 1960s sounded like old hits, you know what I mean? Whereas nowadays, to me, anything that was recorded after 1985 sounds pretty current. So it may just be that, if you're younger, 10 years ago seems like an awfully long time. From where I'm standing, it seems like Sam Raimi rebooted Spider-Man pretty recently.
Yes, well, he did. And I did want to ask Andrew Garfield about that, but we have a limited period of time.
Yeah.
And from what I can gather, it seems as though Spider-Man 4, they were thinking about Spider-Man 4, and then it all fell apart,
exactly.
And so they decided to reboot it. But by the time Andrew said, well, you'll have to ask someone else about that, I thought we might as well just get down to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that was the theory, that Raimi was going to do Spider-Man, although, frankly, after the disaster of Spider-Man 3, I thought he wouldn't go near it with a barge pole. So it just makes you feel that, okay, if you're coming back to something that quickly, you're going to do an Origins thing, then you're going to need to bring something pretty new to the table. And we need to say right from the very beginning that this doesn't reinvent the franchise in the way that, for example, The Dark Knight reinvents Batman. It's not some great big throwing out of the old, coming with, making it darker, making it stranger, it is essentially a reboot of the Spider-Man that you knew before. There is a lot of stuff that's been covered before as well. The death of the uncle, the wrestling mask, the grappling with adolescent problems. What you get is a little bit more Origins backstory. Mark Webb, who's the director, says that basically the missing piece within all of us, Peter has no parents, and he fills that void with Spider-Man. And there's a lot of discussion in the press notes about how what they're doing is going to give you the stuff that hasn't been explored in the cinematic world of Spider-Man before. And that stuff essentially amounts to the loss of his parents. There's more of a time with the father, and the Gwen Stacy saga, which obviously is something which exists within the Spider-Man comics mythology, and it is a strange and slightly odd story. That's what you have. You also have the Lizard, there was a story about when Sam Raimi wanted to do Spider-Man 4, he wanted Lizard, and then they said no, and then it was going to be Vulture. Anyway, now you do have Lizard, played by Rhys Evans. Here's a clip.
How would a predator track a reptile?
No, they don't. Most reptiles are at the top of their respective food chain, kings of their domain.
They gotta have vulnerabilities, right?
Why the sudden interest in the cold-blooded?
Just asking a question. I got school stuff, biology profiles to do. So, because of the cold blood, would they react to sudden changes in temperatures?
Well, you'd have to catch one first. Did you know there's a rumor of a new species in New York? Beautiful and quite large.
What do you know about it? You seen it?
No, it's not yet classified. But it can be aggressive if threatened.
A little bit of Welsh just sneaking out there.
Did you think?
If threatened.
Okay.
Just at the end there.
I sense that there's been an awful lot of discussion on the Facebook page about how Rhys Evans' name is pronounced, and I'm taking it now from the BBC pronunciation unit. There's Evans, and I apologise if I've said Evans in the pub, which is how I've
said
always...
Rhys Ifans.
Oh, have you?
So I'm happy to be wrong
fine.
as well.
Well, hey, if it's wrong, again, then we have to correct the BBC pronunciation department, but I am at least trying.
He's always the guy in that T-shirt in...
you're thinking of Notting Hill. He's not the guy in the T-shirt, he's the guy in the pants.
Guy in the pants.
Guy in the grey
Always
pants.
the guy in the pants.
Yeah,
Bad flatmate.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's the one.
Your hairy flatmate, as he's referred to by Julia Roberts. So, the deal with The Amazing Spider-Man is this. It is neither great nor terrible. It is surprising just how much, whatever innovations it brings, it does feel like it's retreading territory that we have known before. And certainly there's nothing in it that's spectacularly new. There are some things in it that make it worth the effort. I mean, Andrew Garfield is great. I really like him as an actor. I think he's a really interesting screen presence. He is charismatic. There's an interesting thing about the way in which he plays young, which you were talking about before.
He's 28.
I know, and he has the ability to play a lot younger than his actual
At no
age.
stage, I think, will anyone think, as I mentioned in the interview, no one's going to think, no, sorry, I don't believe you as a school kid.
No.
I think he passes that off fantastically, and I don't think there's any other 28-year-olds who can do that.
Yeah, no, and he does it very well, and he is a charming presence, and he gets that thing right about, the right amount of intrigue, the right amount of internal angst, but without it sort of turning into, bleating chest beating. He does do that pretty well. There's also, in terms of the special effects, because there's an awful lot of this is to do with special effects, they have solved to some extent the physical heft problem that they had with the first. I mean, when Raimi made the first Spider-Man movie, as soon as Spidey started leaping between the buildings, there was this terrible issue that he looked like a CGI creation. He did not look like he had any weight or heft. And it was a really strange thing for Raimi, because Raimi in the past had always been so rubbery, plastic. You know, he did films in which people smacked themselves, you know, in the face with frying pans, and it was a very physical thing. And he never seemed to me to quite get the hang of, well, it's not, they didn't solve the digital problem of Spider-Man swinging. Certainly in the first Spider-Man film, they improved it massively.
Thank heavens for 3D, that's what I say.
Yeah, well, since you brought it up, the 3D, and you've seen the film as well, the 3D is utterly irrelevent. Utterly.
No.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
I think it was really good, and really added to the whole swinging from building to building thing. I thought really worked. And as I mentioned in the interview, I flinched once in the final sequence when something went flying past. I can't remember what it was, and that's never happened to me before. And I felt very embarrassed when it had happened. But I think the 3D. This is with the fear of going back to the territory that Richard touched on when we were talking to him. It's an example of where there is a point in the 3D.
Okay, I thought
it works because it's Spider-Man and it's a man swinging from building to building. There is a point to it.
I thought it was completely irrelevant, darkened down the image, made it annoying to watch, and actually the sense of physical heft was nothing to do with the 3D, but it was to do with the way in which the CGs work. The CG
not dead though, is it 3D?
I think it is, but I'm not. You told me not to have an argument about it. If you want me to step up to the mark and have that argument with you, I will do.
Well, it just clearly isn't dead.
Well, it's still here, if that's what you mean. Yeah,
So
it is
dead.
Demonstrably still here.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
what I'm saying.
Dead. You know, I mean, are the walking?
I think the 3D is there. I think it adds to the enjoyment. I think people will go, and obviously the 2D is going to be fantastic.
A lot of the film looks like it's in 2D.
And I think
a lot of the film, if you take the glasses off, looks like it's in 2D.
But I think overall it feels fantastic. If it's a good family film, although that sounds damned with faint praise, but actually all five of us will wander along, I think, sometime in the next few days and watch it, because I think it's terrific.
Okay, well,
And Martin Sheen, yes, I think so.
I'd like to see it in 2D because I'd like to see it without the image loss problem, and I found the 3D annoying and bothersome. Here's the main problem with it for me. Although I think it's certainly way better than Spider-Man 3, and I think it does make certain improvements on Raimi's Spider-Man 1, the high watermark here is still Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 was the moment when Raimi got it all together. Dr. Octopus, that thing about, Otto Octavius, when there's that brilliant line about, he's called Octavius and he ends up with eight limbs. What are the chances? It was a brilliant villain. It was a really, really well executed movie. It was incredibly strange for a PG certificate film. I think it was PG rather than 12. It was really bizarre how much strangeness and weirdness they managed to get into that film with all the stuff when, Octavius is putting the...
Was that Tom Wilkinson?
No, it was Alfred Molina was the main was the Dr. Octavius character, and there's the bit when the stuff welds itself onto his back. He's really up there with kind of the weirdest stuff from Giga. I mean, it's really, really peculiar. So that being the high watermark, this isn't up there with it because it doesn't have, for me, I don't think in terms of Lizard is an interesting monster, but I don't think the best monster, certainly not for me better than the Dr. Octopus character. So what I feel is it's fine. I really like Andrew Garfield. I think they've done a pretty good job with the special effects. I can't stand the 3D. It's not reinventing the franchise anything like enough to really give it a massive raison d'etre, other than, and I do accept this, the fact that 10 years ago is a more significant time gap when you're a teenager than it is when you're men of a certain age. That was what I was trying to say before. So it may well be that to the potential audience, the one that Sam Raimi made is an old record. It's an old film. Therefore, there feels like there's a reason for updating it. But I don't think that what it's got is quite the weirdness, quite the strangeness, quite the complexity of Spider-Man 2. And I think what I want from Spider-Man is more than coming out of it going, it's okay. You yourself said the problem when you summed it up was you felt like you were damning with faint praise.
Well, no, only when I said it was a family movie, and as much as I think it's something that, so our youngest is 12,
yes,
he'll think it's great.
I think it'll be huge.
20,
certainly,
he thinks it's going to be great.
I think it'll be absolutely huge. I think it will satisfy a very broad audience, and there's nothing about it that makes me go, that's dumb, that's stupid, that's it's not any of those things. It's slightly unremarkable, but that in itself might be remarkable.